President Trump talking about the death toll from coronavirus in the United States in this Axios interview. Listen to this.
Don't worry about wearing masks. I mean, these are people, many of them are older people,
What's
Mr.
your
President.
definition of control? Yeah, under the
It's giving them a false sense of
circumstances right
security.
now, I think it's under control. I'll tell you what.
How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day.
They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is. But that doesn't mean we aren't doing everything we can. It's under control as much as you can control it. This is a horrible plague that beset us.
Jonathan Swan, the national political reporter for Axios, who conducted that interview, joins us now. Jonathan, great to have you here this morning. Wow. What an interview. We've been playing excerpts of it all morning. It's stunning, and so it's really helpful to get your take on it. When the president says about the death toll, it is what it is. We're doing all we can. I hear a level of impotence and powerlessness. Does he truly think that his administration is doing all they can to keep the death toll down? How did you interpret that response?
Well, what I found to be most striking from that is I'm used to seeing him argue testing, talk about test numbers, etc. But there was a part of the interview where he actually tried to litigate the death toll with me. And there really is no getting around the fact that 150,000 plus Americans have died of this virus and 1,000 are dying a day. But he did try to present to me, he brought his own charts and tried to present to me that America was actually doing better than the rest of the world, the whole world, in fact, on the metric of death. And I was genuinely puzzled as to what he handed me. I was looking at this sheet, and then I realized that what he actually was talking about was death as a proportion of cases, which was not what I was asking about. I was trying to get to the point of why is it that America, the United States of America, with all of its advanced science and technology, is performing so much worse than other advanced countries like South Korea and Germany. When you look at death as a proportion of population, it's not even close. That's what I was trying to get at. And when I tried to confront him with that, he said, you can't do that. It was a really sort of striking exchange to have with the President of the United States.
In fact, we have that right now. I want people to see this. Watch carefully.
Well, right here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories. We're lower than the world.
Lower than the world?
Lower than
What is that?
Europe.
In what?
Look.
In what?
Take a look. Right here. Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US is really bad.
Well,
much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
You can't do that.
How dare you confront him with facts, Jonathan Swan? It wasn't clear to me whether or not he's believing in this fantasy or whether he's deliberately deceiving, Jonathan. Both may be true at once.
President Trump has a way of thinking. He's talked about his adherence to a philosophy called positive thinking, which is the idea that if you say something, you believe it, you actualize it, it actually happens. It's a philosophy that's sort of very much, you see it among salesmen. And it probably does very little harm in the realms of commercial real estate and reality television. This is the first time we've ever seen that philosophy applied in real time to the worst pandemic in a century. And the problem is, when you talk to all public health experts, they say that communication from leaders is critical during a public health crisis. In fact, it's probably the most important thing they can do, more important than organizing logistics of ventilators, for example. And what is needed is consistency, is communication that's rooted in facts and rooted to reality. And so when you have the president who instead of saying, yes, we've done substantially worse than South Korea and Germany, and here's why, and here's what I've learned, and here's what we're going to do differently. It's not that. It's saying, firstly, I don't believe the South Korean figures. You don't know that. Here's this other metric upon which we can be compared favorably. It's a completely 180-degree different way of confronting this extreme public health threat.
And shockingly, the death toll stubbornly refuses to be spun in that other mode that you're describing. Let's just show this exchange now, Jonathan, about where you asked him about John Lewis and how he felt that John Lewis would be remembered. Watch this.
John Lewis is lying in state in the US Capitol. How do you think history will remember John Lewis?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know John Lewis. He chose not to come to my inauguration. He chose. I never met John Lewis. Actually, I don't believe.
Do you find him impressive?
I can't say one way or the other. I find a lot of people impressive. I find many people not impressive. But no. But I didn't go.
Do you find his story impressive?
He didn't come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union speeches, and that's okay.
He really struggled. He really struggled to answer that question, other than that it was just the politics of grievance because John Lewis didn't go to his inauguration. How did you expect him to answer that? I mean, you kept sort of pressing, but how do you believe he'll be remembered? How did you expect the president to answer that?
The reason I asked the question is because I genuinely didn't know how he was going to respond to it. I'd seen him asked, are you going to, I think that even that day or the day before, he was asked whether he would go to visit John Lewis in the Capitol as he was lying in state, and the president gave a very curt no. So I thought I would maybe try and pull him back and ask him to reflect on John Lewis's legacy. I thought it was important to try and do that, given at this moment we're having a national conversation about race and racism and civil rights. And I have to say, I wasn't entirely surprised that the president saw it through the prism of his own personal relationship or lack thereof with John Lewis, and viewed John Lewis's legacy primarily, the question of how history would view John Lewis. His first instinct was to consider the question of how Lewis treated him, Donald Trump. That was his first port of call in answering that question. And that, I must say, did not surprise me.
I have to say, John Lewis deserved better than that answer, and I think the country deserved better. And to see that answer inside the White House was really remarkable. Jonathan Swan, we really appreciate you being with us. It was a terrific interview and revealing what can happen when the president is confronted with just simple facts. Simple facts. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.